What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to be the fifth album by Slipknot. Basically, this product is called Point Five, the Grey Chapter, and it came out in the fall of 2014. So the thing about this particular album here is just the fact that it came out a decent length after like their hit album from 2008, which was called All Hope Is Gone as far as this pitch kind of happened. Now, I reviewed that particular album back in late 2022, so it's been a little bit since I've particularly reviewed Slipknot, but I wanted to get to this particular album. Reason why it's been so lengthy is the reason why I haven't reviewed Slipknot as much since 2022 or mid 2023. I did review Slipknot 1999 and mid 2023, but it's been a bit just because the concept that some of these albums are relatively tougher within the aspects to take a little bit more oomph and kind of measure as far as particularly throwing these reviews together as to trying to remember some of these type of ones and be able to convey it within the pitch behind it. It's not to say like it's a difficulty to convey these particular ones, but it's just within the pitch that there's just the assembly behind a lot of these songs. Typically, Slipknot is just more dismantled type fare within the pitch. Just a lot of carnivorous type craziness, just in the aspect that kind of flies off the handle, particularly when you think of albums like less kind of Slipknot from '99 in Iowa and more of albums like Duality. The Great Chapter was kind of an in-between type one that had a little bit more sonically pleasing kind of melodic type one, similar to Stone Sour. And then like All Hope Is Gone was one that really was not necessarily experimental, but it was just kind of the pitch that was just not, from what I remember, that particular product, it was just a beast of a product within the tones. This particular one kind of has the tone of disc. This one is very factory within a sense. It brings it back to like the early 2000s and late 90s Slipknot within a pitch, but it also does it in like a glossier type sense. So really, the instrumentation on this particular album is not as fierce. It has the same aspects. It seems like it's the same type fare from like the early 2000s days, but this is like more cookie cutter esque. It's just a lot more cookie cutter esque. The thing to pay attention to on this particular album is just the new era. The thing to pay attention to on this particular album is just the new era type stuff with the experimentation that kind of goes along with this. It's just a very demonic and hellish type album. Just the aspect as far as saying there's just some stuff here that feels very murky and from a different land as far as those pitches going to happen. Just an excellent aspect going to get this. This is a very, very enthralling and kind of captivating type aspects that just really transform some of this type of stuff. There's just not many things I could think of within this aspect when you think possibly of like death metal or doom metal, some of those type pitches, but just the fact this would probably be one of the most commercial albums, especially past like the early 2000s. I'd have to say that really aspects of that type fare of getting something that you're going to hear on like everyday radio and just doing it like an aspect that just doesn't feel like the typical kind of cookie cutter type pop rock or just rock or even metal type aspect. This is definitely very vicious on here, but it's just within the tone. The riffage is not as heavy compared to folks when you think of like Megadeth or when you think of Metallica or when you think of like some of these folks I've been listening to, like Electric Callboy and like Attack Attack and some of those type of folks, and Mushroom Head and certain folks like that. I mean, I feel like the viciousness, like Slipknot does not aim to be like the most vicious kind of instrumentation work on this particular album, but it's just the concept of this is a very warped and slag type product that just nails the appeal of being able to deal with just like some trippy type factor and like a more hellish type sense as far as this is going to happen. So definitely in terms of like that more kind of Ozfest type material and this more demonic type slag, definitely perfect for September, October, November, but just within the pitch and more of like the typical kind of gothic type aspect, and then the alternative fold that definitely succeeds saliently in this album. Recommended every song on here is simple enough to kind of say typical for Slipknot. Dislike Slipknot 90, or dislike Slipknot 99. I gave that over a 9 out of 10. And like the album from 2008, All Hope Is Gone, I think I remember giving that over a 9 out of 10 as well. So it's just typical classic fare for Slipknot, but this is definitely a very inspired type product, despite the fact that the instrumentation is just not. It's not like it's not vicious. It's definitely good for metal as far as those aspects. But when you start listening to more things like Bathory and Metallica and Electric Callboy and some of these type of folks, Attack Attack, Mushroom Head, some of these folks like I've been saying, Megadeth definitely is just within the pitch that it feels like it. There's some bands that can compete with them, but for the pitch behind it, in terms of like commercial metal, that was probably on the forefront of at least like radio appeal for like the mid 2010s forward. It's still some pretty vicious type of appeal. So it's just the aspect. Pretty lengthy album within the pitch. Not to say like a complaint of that. They nailed every single song here. Just being able to get to those pitches. Just some excellent type fare. Got to five singles at least, plus at least four extra kind of promo singles within some of this type pitch. So this is definitely one that was promoted for a good while. It just seemed like they made up for the fact that they had not been around since like the late 2000s, but it's just within the pitch that they only dropped 2 albums in the 2010s on top of that. So it's just within the pitch. I know Corey Taylor did some Stone Sour stuff in like the mid 2010s. I remember the product of some of those singles being on the radio as well. So it's just within the pitch as far as those fairs going to happen. But yeah, this is definitely some demonic type stuff kind of get within those aspects. So we'll just go down the list here to understand the concept that this is a 10 out of 10 album. It's just the pitch as far as saying that Yeah, it's just some good stuff here just to be able to get within those aspects. So definitely the negative one is like the lead single. This is the banshee-like kind of hauntiness I'd have to say here. It just reminds me definitely of Surfing Scene from this particular song feels just like Surfing Scene from Slipknot 99. I'd have to say some basic kind of demonic late romps to kind of get within some of those aspects. It's just some standard type fare, just like maybe summer type sense, but just in a more hellish type sense. It's a real murky kind of red skies type atmosphere just within the taste behind it. Just definitely some good backyard type music to have hellish smokers too as far as those fares going to happen. Now, nowadays, the unfortunate thing is, I would say Corey Taylor's kind of sobered up more now within the pitches within today's fashion. But I think back in like the mid 2010s, he still had some aspects of uh, getting within a relative sense of tore up. It's a good fashion. I think even Slipknot from like the 2020s forward does have some songs for getting tore up within the pitch, but it's just kind of concept of this some more type fare is when the aspect of typical kind of backyard roms and barbecue pitches, some of those type fares just to be able to get it. So this is just a lead single. Likely got some pretty good radio airplay. This is one. A lot of these songs got over 70 million plays on Spotify as far as this pitch can happen. There's a couple that have over 300, 400 million plays, and at least three singles have over 100 million plays on Spotify. So some good type pitches, definitely excellent aspects, but negative one is definitely a pretty good lead single. The Devil and I is a nice one as well. It's like a murky kind of lava lake, like Battlefield Meadow to kind of get within these aspects. It's the Battlefield Meadow kind of atmosphere. It definitely feels like a Battlefield Meadow kind of atmosphere. I'd have to say about this one, just a shrill kind of autumn jaunts kind of get here and just an overall hot type song. So it's just within the pitch. What I mean by this is just very hellish, just in the aspects, not so much like Battlefield Metal, like you would actually be thinking of wartime. It's just the imagery that the band kind of depicts on this particular stuff between the vocals that are really slagged. This feels like a Stone Sour song, The Devil and I. It's kind of the ghastliness of Slipknot with this like the sing-songiness of like Stone Sour as far as this pitch gonna go. Just a good aspect of just something that feels like a war-torn kind of atmosphere. There'd be factory smoke in the sky, just murky kind of red skies everywhere, pitches like that. Just real kind of this is what I talk about for just harnessing like something different within the pitch, just different lands. As far as those aspects gonna happen, just some good type tones, but it's like some shrill autumn jaunts, this typical haunting fashion for Slipknot. Just in the aspect of just like some good backyard touch smokish in a more embellished type sense. So it's good type tone. Custer is a nice one as well. It's like a brewing kind of vehicle commerce and like a slag kind of murky ambience type feel about this one. Just a steadfast kind of blood pumping about this one. Just some good dynamo to kind of get here. So this is one that basically harnesses the energy. Just to say about dynamo, it's just a good type pitch that really this is not the most vicious type song. I feel like the negative one is a little bit more vicious, but it's just within the aspect as far as saying it's just a good makeshift type one to kind of get within that aspect of just like all right, I'm feeling good, just feeling like it's feeling the blood pump in your veins as far as those aspects of just getting excited and exhilarated as far as those pitches kind of happen, just the excitement of this, something that gets you excited without not necessarily being full bound kind of crazy, throw chairs and stand on couches, some of those type pitches, just to be honest, say it's just a good type tone for that, just typical kind of exhilaration that Slipknot kind of does. It's within the concept of just more vehicle centric, just the aspect of just something that's like a good embrace to kind of have for like your tape deck or playlist as far as like something to listen to in a vehicle when okay, you're done with task responsibilities, but just the concept of figuring out what's going to happen in terms of like some more murky type turnips. So all of these Slipknot's 3 for 3 with the singles as far as these pitches going to happen with this being able to have like some of these warp type ones just within a sense. That's the thing. This is a lot more like I was saying, this is a lot more experimental. Like I was saying, this is a lot more experimental. This one the tone. It's not the typical disc metal, the shredding mosh pit type music. There's really not that many mosh pit songs on this particular album. I'd say there's some ones that definitely have the riffage on here, but in terms of like mosh pit, like when you think of like My Plague and some of those type ones off of Iowa and even songs like Duality off of like Chapter 3 or the 2004. I don't forget what that one's called, but just from the pitch 2000, 1999, 2001, 2004. I was just in the pitch that this a lot more just kind of warped and this demonic kind of gas that I'd say some good type fares. But Kill Pop is the fourth single, is like a bleary kind of outlandish head trip to kind of get here, just feeling grand kind of venue haunts. I would definitely say about this particular one, this nice murky kind of social embellish kind of have for some of these. This one's a little bit more for like venue type bounce. This would have to say just some social aspects, not necessarily every type. Just some different haunts for just like once the backyard fairs kind of get old, just some good type pitches, kind of have some social step out or some drinks, some good type concepts for like some rock music that can be played within like venue type places where there be some ambiences for like some good aspects of like some socialness. It's just a good song to trip hard to as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just good, excellent type, just grandness, typical summer and autumn type fashion within some of those type pitches. Just a good, just further murkiness kind of get within those tones. And then Goodbye is a good single here as well. It's the fifth single here as far as those pitches can happen. This one charted over a year after this particular album came out, so good type pitches there. This is more Stone Sour type fashion, but it does in an excellent way. It's more Stone This is more excellent Stone Sour type fashion. It does it in a pretty dope concept, but this is some more excellent Stone Sour type fashions that this does in a particularly prolific way as far as those pitches kind of go. It's like a brooding kind of warped commotion kind of get here. It just reminds me definitely of Stone Sour, like I was saying, in like a ghastly kind of doom sense that I'd say. And it's like a half ballad here. So it's a concept. There's some songs where Corey Taylor kind of particularly does somewhat of like ballads on here. Some songs like If Rain Is What You Want. I want to say there's at least one other song like that on here, might be like The Burden, some of these type of ones that just have like some of those type of aspects within the tone behind it. At least Goodbye, at least three songs at least three songs have like some of that power ballad type aspects just to be able to get within the tone behind it. There is at least another one. I think it's The Burden. I don't know if I said The Burden, but The Burden, songs like The Burden, If Rain Is What You Want, and Goodbye are some ones within that pitch that harness kind of Stone Sour, but then just switch it up and have like the typical kind of demonic type fare Slipknot. So usually towards the second half of the song is where the turnover just gets back to more of that fashion, just like the riffage and the shreddage as far as those aspects going to go. So it's just hellish within a sense, but just kind of hones like some concepts of just having like the ambience of just like some unification, like a haunting type sense is the aspect. Just really the embellish of just like some good outing type fare and just social commotion, good concepts for that. It's good type pitches, would have to say. So it works as like a good sense. I probably would have preferred Goodbye to just have been like a full bound kind of ballad as far as this pitch kind of went. I think the tone for what was going on at the beginning of the song, I like the fact that Slipknot inserts like the rest of the crazy on some of these particular fashions, but I do feel like the first half of Goodbye, and it's the same thing with If Rain Is What You Want and The Burden. These are just some ones that really could have been like spin-off songs of something that could have been really murky just within a gloom type sense. This kind of the pitch that the Wait and Bleed type Corey Taylor, where he has the more sing-songy hooks, is on here, but it's just not in as much full-bound type fashion. This is a commercial type album, but then it kind of isn't. It's just kind of the tone. Yeah, it was a big deal. Got the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 singles within the pitch behind it, but this the aspect of like a typical kind of distinct type hit, like when you think of Wait and Bleed or like Spit It Out, some of those type of ones, or My Plague or Duality, some of those type pitches that just feel like consistent kind of staples that are decade lasting just in the pitch. It felt like this album was kind of here and there, but this makes me question as to how today's rock stations kind of pick up some of these singles as far as those going to happen. Because usually nowadays, the most recent Slipknot singles, the ones that get plays, then and combined with like the couple early Slipknot albums. But it's just within the pitch as far as saying that that's the only real complaint about this album is just the fact that the distinction in terms of like ones that compete and can actually outstrip kind of like the early Slipknot hits from like 2000 from 1999 to 2004 just doesn't seem as full bound. It's not like these are not good songs. This album is going to get a 10 out of 10. It's just in the pitch as far as saying the aspect behind is just a little bit more. This like early Slipknot does compete with this project. It's just kind of telling that if you're going for distinction and just like more kind of stapled kind of aspects about it, I'd say the early Slipknot might have some more thrills, but this is just a little bit more fun, has a little bit more bite and venom about it, and just more murkiness and just more kind of head trip type appeals. But just the aspect, some of these other ones just might just the aspect because they haven't been around as much within the past good while. It's just the pitch that some of these might just feel less distinct within the tone. It's just the, I mean, it's still a classic here. Just being able to say, yeah, there is like a super deluxe version of this album. I'm not going to review like the extra two songs, Huffy's Between Dumpsters and Flea Circus, and then there's some extra type ones on top of that. There's also like an untitled, but I would suspect to say that I'd probably wind up recommending those songs as well. So I just would have to say, at least for the standard fashion, I wound up recommending every single song on here. The only song I'm not going to talk about within a sense is just 19 as far as this bitch going to happen, which that one was just, I don't know, the intro type of appeal. I feel like the vibe of just like the instrumental type songs was just worked better on Be Prepared for Hell. So I'll go ahead and talk about that one. Be Prepared for Hell is just like a good interim kind of living room kind of zone out here. Just a ghastly feel good type song to definitely kind of get within those aspects. Good song to toke and dine. I would definitely feel like just a very snaring type one. Not really any vocals on this particular song, just a little bit of haunting ghastliness just within the tone. It's just kind of the aspect of just like some good roll-ups and swishers, some of those type fares, just some good aspects. Have some pizza, some of those type pitches, just a good kind of one just to kind of figure out what's going to happen. Just the aspect, just situate some of those type fares with social, just more living room type fare. Probably one of my most favorite songs on this particular album would be If Rain Is What You Want. This definitely nails the vibe. Some of this moody type factor. I feel like some of these haunting, deranged type ballads definitely work in like an extreme sense. There probably need to be a few more of these on here. I feel like songs like Goodbye and If Rain Is What You Want are some of the best songs on here in terms of like some new type stuff that, you know, obviously the distinction of previous Slipknot, vintage Slipknot works within a sense, but I just feel like Iowa and Slipknot 99 just nailed those vibes a little bit better in terms of like the the distinct riffage that just has the more song snap. But these are good, but I do feel like these new moments just compare better on like the newer days. I'd say if Rain is what you want, it's like a superb kind of gloomy militant kind of power stretcher to kind of get in like a harrowing way. I would definitely feel like about this song is just an overall freakish type one. So some good type appeals here. Really nails the manicness just in the aspect behind this, and real good hellish type factor you kind of get within some of those type aspects. Another song I feel like is just like that is The Burden. It's like a deranged, kind of dismantled commute to kind of get here. It goes with Lech, I would definitely feel like. And I would also say there's at least another one on here. Maybe I might say Override, some of those type pitches, or maybe it's Kill Pop, one of those type ones. There's a couple of ones that just feel like Lech is a particularly dismantled type one, but I'd say The Burden is definitely like that as well. But this has like zombie, this is like a zombie like kind of power ballad. I'd have to say this has a demonic push about it. Lech is definitely a pretty haunting type one. This like a swarming kind of gothic quagmire. I definitely feel like about this particular song. Just a miry kind of anguish zombie appeal about this particular song. Usual kind of ferocious upon the song as well as within like the chorus and stuff, but it's also pretty swampy. Usual kind of ferocious fight about this particular song, but it's also pretty swampy just within the aspects behind it. So this is definitely one of the most murky ones on here. It's like one of the most warped type ones. I mean, this is not as much of a full bound kind of head trip, but it's just the demonic typeness that this definitely works in like a horror aspect. When you see like the Slipknot mask and like a usual show that they kind of do within the more is demonic typeness is a good aspect for some of that just kind of more black metal, death metal, doom metal type stuff. So this is basically like a concept. If you do appreciate like the concepts of like black metal and death metal, some of those type pitches, but you want it within like the most commercial aspect, I'd say Slipknot is one of the best bets for some of that type. It's like a good aspect of this, promoting those particular styles within the demonic type sense and just bringing it to like the forefront. Now, this particular album more so than Slipknot 99 and 2001. This just feels like something that's like a conduit for like commercializing like some of the more ghastly kind of metals like black metal, death metal, doom metal, even thrash metal within certain sense. Not so much thrash metal, but some of those type ones from like the 80s and early 90s that just were like murky, never going to get on the radio type songs. So it's good type appeals. Like AOV is like a nice one. This is a particular good appeal about this. It's like a vicious kind of glam metal. It's like some vicious kind of glam metal kind of get here. Just a shinier snarl for Slipknot. I would definitely feel like here just more glossy than My Plague and Spit It Out. Some of those type ones. This is kind of the pitch as far as what I was talking about. The songs like The Negative One, AOV, songs like Skeptic and Sarcastrophe, some of those type ones. I mean, it's definitely vicious for like standard metal within the pitch. If you haven't heard prior bands within those aspects, it's the tone. If you're not familiar with, if you don't have like a wild kind of like dictionary and vocabulary of like metal bands within the pitch, but the more you start to flesh out, you start to realize that this is a little bit more factory and just kind of cookie cutter, especially this particular album. It's just more, like I was saying, the thing to pay attention to with this particular album is just the more warped kind of this hellish type aspect of this particular album, more so than the shredding riffage that just has the most bananas type appeal. It's just typical type fare, but Iowa is probably a more vicious album. It's the same thing with Slipknot 99, but like, yeah, AOV is just a shinier type one, just some glam metal within a sense, interesting aspect for that. Sarcastrophe is another one, just like those particular type tones. This is a gnarled but more watered down, kind of seemingly type song within those pitches. Not as vicious as like early 2000s. I feel like I was saying, just a factory kind of hit. Good song here. A lot of these are good within the sense of not going to notch the score for these particular ones. They are excellent songs within the pitch. It's just the distinction factor. It's just the concept. You may find yourself listening to more songs like from early Slipknot, more so in the tones. I mean, it's just new stuff to kind of get, but it just doesn't. The viciousness just doesn't distinguish itself as much as those days. But it's just an appeal. So Skeptic is a pretty quality one though. This one reminds me of 99 Slipknot. I'd had to say songs like Sick and Eyeless, some of those type songs like Sick and Eyeless, some of those particular type ones. This has hella drummage on there. I would definitely feel like a good thump about that. And it's like a classic venue kind of screech kind of get within some of those type of appeals. So Slipknot does not lose their touch as far as this pitch can have. They have the same appeal to some of the aspects of doing it. It's just kind of the concept that it just feels like the new factor is just more interesting this time. So it's just kind of concept. But there are some immediate ones. I'll definitely talk about those once we get to some more songs on here. The one that kills least is another factory type one. It's like a vintage kind of Iowa era Slipknot. I had to say this is excellent, but kind of factory, just not a staple. It's like usual Slipknot. So just some of these type ones, they are good just within the pitch behind. These are just ones that have that same sort of riffage just in the aspect. If you do miss like Iowa era Slipknot, they give you what you want. But it's just kind of the concept that in terms of like something that has like that dynamite, in terms of something that has like that dynamite kind of aspect. I mean, they are dynamite, but just in terms of like the distinction as far as saying that like it can outstrip some of your old favorites that you've listened to for the past 20 years. It's just not within the pitch behind it, but it's just within the tone. Override is a quality one. This is like a militant kind of hellish enjoy to kind of get here. Just a productive kind of night calmer. So definitely feel like this peppy kind of after work shift outing push to kind of get within some of those type tones. This is another highlight. This is one of the most immediate ones I'd have to say. Just like If Rain Is What You Want and Lech, and then I would also say Goodbye or some of those type ones within the most immediate fashion. But this is just one that has like the bravado, just kind of the embellish of like some demonic type fare, just red skies, kind of murkiness, something where you'd be usually watching movies like Hellboy and things like those kind of movies, just in the aspects, some of those type ones like Spawn, some of those type pitches. I've had to say some of those particular type fares behind it, and like End of Days, some of those type movies like Spawn and End of Days, some of those type pitches that had to say good aspects there within those tones. Just a real murky typeness kind of get within those tones. I don't think I've talked about Nomadic either. It's like a night activity kind of backyard smoke fest kind of get here. Just a fun litty turn up. I would definitely feel like within those tones, good barbecue and jolly noise kind of have within these aspects. It's some good barbecue type music. It's another nice one. Just like some of those factory cookie cutter type ones, but just within the pitch of just getting like some classic kind of fare of like Slipknot from back in those days. This one has a little bit more distinction just within the pitch. Just some good smoke fest type tunes, just within the aspects for those fairs going to go. Just typical kind of fair, just social pizzazz, some of that type aspects. But a lot of these more riff heavy type ones that feel like Iowa and Slipknot 99, Slipknot are just within the pitch of just the cookie cutter aspects, but they do deliver in terms of like some backyard and barbecue type fun to kind of have. And these are just some nice ones for that. So some of these, despite the fact that I said that they're kind of more factories within the pitch, they are still fun. So some good type concepts to kind of have for some of these aspects here. I think I talked about every song on here as far as those pitches kind of happen, just in the aspect behind it. Some good type flares overall, I'd have to say. Is the tone behind this particular album. So this album gets a 10 out of 10 just within the pitch behind it. I'd have to say that on top of that, the social score is probably going to get a 10 out of 10 as well, or at least maybe like a 9.75. I mean, the aspect behind this album is pretty commercial within the sense that this particular album did get the 9 singles as far as those pitches going to happen. It's just the aspect. I just question like the mammoth kind of appeal. I realized that at least 3 songs off this album got over 100 million plays on Spotify, so it must have had like a relative big deal about it. But I just question like the aspect when you compare it to like folks that are longtime fans of Slipknot, what they would particularly say about this album compared to Iowa and Chapter, the 2004 album and Slipknot 99, some of those type pitches. It's early Slipknot just saying the viciousness. I feel like in terms of like the new stuff that they did, this might be one of their best, but competing with like their earlier hits, just their snarl from back in those days, just the way that they handled it with just a little bit more sprightness, was just more developed within the aspect. Just had more carnivore. It's a little bit more kind of feral in like 99, 2001, 2004, but just they have more kind of like venom on this particular album. So it's just kind of within the pitch, a little bit more demonicness and just more tricks up their sleeves as far as those pitches kind of go. So it's just an aspect. So I would say, I mean, it's kind of tricky to not give this a 10 out of 10 social when it has 9 singles, but it's just in the pitch as far as saying like the ones that just have the most biting kind of aspect in terms of something that's just like an actual album and career standout for Slipknot is just kind of within the field. So I would say pretty much like light 10, but probably 9.75 would be the closer, more accurate thing to kind of say about it just in the pitch. But I look after it in terms of the future, like Slipknot has not dropped an album since late 2022, is within the pitch behind it. But I do look after the tone here. There's a couple more to get to. The next album they dropped after this one came out in 2019, which is a decent gap as well as far as this pitch can have. We'll have to see how that one particularly kind of goes. There's definitely some hellish fun to kind of get here. Just real thrill type one, just the murkiness, the good concepts. I would definitely say once again some of the immediate stands out. I would definitely say some of the immediate standouts on here would be some of these ballad type ones in like a haunting kind of hellish type sense, like If Rain Is What You Want and Goodbye, and some of those type ones that just have a little bit more melodies, like Stone Sour esque, I'd say within the pitch. But this definitely classic album here. Like I said, recommend every song just with the pitch. It's some good type of feel. Try some new tricks and they work, but it's just kind of just the aspect you have to realize the concept of the context that goes along with it.